Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started with our daily quiz. Let's look into the first practice question. Consider the following statements about Mukundapura CM2. It is a meteorite which fell in Mukundapura village in Gujarat. It is a type of iron meteorite. Which of the above statements is or correct? The answer to this is none. Let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following are correctly matched? We have the mission and the objective of the mission. The first mission is the Osiris Rex. It collects samples from asteroid Bennu. Then we have the second mission called as Cassini. It performs reconnaissance of the dwarf planet Pluto. And third is the Hayabusa mission, which collects samples from asteroid Ryugu. Which of the statements are correctly matched? The answer to this is 1 and 3 only. Why have we taken both these practice questions? Because of the reference given under this article. The first important question from this article is we have to understand what is the difference between a meteoroid, a meteor as well as a meteorite. So what is a meteorite? Basically these are nothing but small rocks or particles or debris that which is present in the solar system outside the atmosphere of the earth. So basically when we are categorizing what is a meteorite, a meteor or a meteorite, it is about the presence of this particular rock or a debris. So when we are speaking about the meteorite, these are the debris from the asteroids and the comets which live outside the earth's atmosphere. The minute they enter the earth atmosphere, these are called as the meteor. So what is a meteor? A meteorite which enters into the earth atmosphere, burns up because of the friction with the atmosphere, which acts as a light passing through the earth's atmosphere, is called as a meteor. When it is present outside the earth atmosphere, it is called as meteorite, and when it enters the earth atmosphere, it is called as meteor. And when this meteor does enter into the earth and after all the friction still falls on the surface of the earth, that is what is called as the meteorite. So the difference is, one, if it is present outside the atmosphere, it is a meteorite. The minute it enters the atmosphere, it will become a meteor, and when it falls on the surface of the earth, that becomes what is called as the meteorite. Why are we discussing this? That is because we recently had a meteorite which had fallen in one of the villages called as Mukundapur, that happens to be in the state of Rajasthan. So it is not in the state of Gujarat, but it had fallen in the state of Rajasthan. When it comes to meteorite, there are three different groups in it. What are these three different groups? One is what is called as stony or the silicate. Then we have what is called as the iron rich meteorite, and third is what we call as the stony iron meteorite. In the present scenario, we are speaking about Mukundapur CM2, which is classified as the carbonaceous chondrite. This carbonaceous chondrite does not belong to the group of iron, but instead it belongs to the group of stony or the silicate rich meteorite. So what is the difference between the stony, the iron as well as the stony iron? Basically, when we are speaking about the stony type of meteorite, they have the silicate minerals, and chondrites happens to be one form which falls under the broad classification of stony or the silicate rich meteorite. So when we are speaking about the chondrites, these are the most primitive meteorites, that which is remnant of the earliest of the solar system. So the minute Survey of India is able to analyze it, we would be able to understand the historical precedence of our solar system. That happens to be the significance of this particular meteorite. Then followed by this, what we have is the iron rich meteorite. Basically they are completely made up of the metal. So as the way name denotes, we have the iron rich, which means we have iron, and we also have the nickel in this particular meteorite. Followed by this, what we have is the stony iron, which is nothing but having nearly equal amounts of silicate as well as the metal. They are considered as some of the most beautiful meteorites that we have witnessed when it comes to the solar system. So what is the relevance of this particular project? So basically, as we discover these meteorites, we would be in a much better position to understand the historical importance of the solar system. And we also have a mention of the Osiris mission as well as the Hayabusa mission. So what will they basically do? They will get all the samples from the asteroid. So these samples from the asteroid and from the meteorite, we should be in a position to understand, compare and Finally, we would be able to understand the historical idea about our solar system. And apart from that, these asteroids are also rich in volatiles, and they might also have more minerals as well. And when we are exploring the space in the near future, minerals can also be explored from these asteroids, is what we have to understand in reference to this article. Also remember, in the second question, we had one of the missions called as Cassini. Cassini is not about reconnaissance of the dwarf planet Pluto, but one of the missions about Pluto is what is called as the New Horizons mission. And when it comes to the Cassini mission, it is an unmanned spacecraft sent to the planet Saturn. Now let's look into the next practice question. With reference to Planck satellite, which of the following statements is or correct? Planck was a space observatory operated by NASA. It was devoted to cosmology and astrophysics. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. So kindly remember, when it comes to the Planck satellite, this was a space observatory that was operated not by NASA, but it is by European Space Agency. The article here makes a mention of one of the important telescopes as well. What is it? It is Atacama Cosmology Telescope. This is one of the telescopes which is present, as the very name denotes, in Atacama. Where is Atacama? This is present in the country of Chile. So this is one of the telescopes which is placed in Chile, and what does it do? It is designed to make high resolution measurements of the cosmic microwave background, temperature and polarization anisotropes, and detect massive galaxy clusters. And when it comes to the Planck satellite, this was devoted to cosmology and astrophysics, which was concerned with the study of the origin and the evolution of the universe. So that is what we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next practice question. In order for biomagnification to occur, a pollutant must be short-lived, mobile, soluble in fats, biologically active. The answer to this is 2, 3, 4. Why? Because it is not short-lived, but instead it has to be long-lived pollutant. Why? In case they are short-lived, what would happen? They could be broken down into pieces, and ultimately, eventually, they will not be dangerous as well. In case they are mobile, that is when they would be able to transfer from one trophic level to another trophic level. If they stay in one particular place, it will not move from one organism to another. When we are speaking about soluble in fats, why is it has to be soluble in fats? Because if it is in water, this can also be excreted by that particular organism. But if it is soluble in fats, this can also be transferred from one organism to another. Let's take the example of milk produced by a mammal. In case there is milk, if there is pollutant which is entered into this particular fat, this can also be transmitted to the future generation as well. Finally, this pollutant also has to be biologically active as well. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article with respect to cobalt. What is this biomagnification? Before we understand what is this biomagnification, we have to understand what is bioaccumulation. What is a bioaccumulation? Let's say, for example, there is a pollutant. A pollutant can be a mercury, it can be cobalt, or any other minerals which can be harmful for that particular organism. So the minute it enters one of the species or an organism, that is what is called as bioaccumulation. So if it is present in a particular species or an organism, when a pollutant enters that particular organism, that is what is called as bioaccumulation. So a pollutant enters the body of an organism. Then what we have is a process called as the biomagnification. Let me explain this on two levels. One is what we have on the aquatic level. The other is what we have as the terrestrial level. First, let us understand as given in this picture with respect to the aquatic level. What happens in the aquatic level? Let's take the example of mercury. What happens? There are mining activities that are conducted, let's say in a particular area close by to the oceanic system. What we have is mining activities conducted. This will release mercury. This mercury is ingested by the krills. What are these krills? These are nothing but the small crustaceans. Let's say, for example, these are hypothetical numbers. This just for the sake of explanation. Let's say there is about 1 gram of mercury that is taken up by this particular krill. So how many krills are there? Let's say about 3 krills. So 1 gram of krill. So 1 gram of krill. So there are 3 krills that are present. So what is the present state? status, we have the Salmon pollock oyster, which currently has 3 grams of mercury. Why? Because it has eaten 3 krills. This salmon pollock oyster will be eaten by trout tuna. So what happens? It not only eats one single fish, but instead it eats, let's assume, about 10 oysters. So what would happen? There will be 10 grams of this particular mercury which will be present in trout tuna. So this trout tuna will be eaten by a shark. So what would happen? 10 grams is already present in the trout tuna. So there would be about 10 trout tunas that will be eaten by the shark. So eventually this will be about 100 grams which will be present in a shark tuna. So what is happening here? There is increase of this particular mercury from one organism into another organism. That is what is called as biomagnification. So what is biomagnification here? At the initial trophic level or the energy level, what we had was minuscule amount of this particular pollutant, but then eventually as it moves up the trophic level, what we have is increased level of the pollutant. Now let's equate it at the terrestrial level. Let's say for example there are plants in a terrestrial ecosystem. These are the producers. Let's say for example there is a plant. What do? We add a huge amount of pesticides. So what happens? As we add pesticides, these are taken up by the plants. Let's say hypothetically there is about 1 gram of insecticide, or for example let's say cobalt in a particular plant. Is it going to be harmful for the human beings if 1 gram is consumed? No. Now let's say for example there are about 10 plants that are present. Can a human being consume 10 plants? No. But let's say in a hypothetical situation there is a sheep. So this sheep will consume about 10 plants, just hypothetical numbers. So this sheep in the future will be consumed by the human beings. So what would happen in the present scenario? The 5 trees would be consumed by the sheep. So there will be 5 grams of cobalt, and in the near future this 5 grams of cobalt is indirectly consumed by the human beings. So what is happening at the terrestrial system? At the terrestrial system there is biomagnification, which means the pollutant is increasing over a period of time. That is what is called as biomagnification. So what would be the impact? Because of increasing cases of mining, increasing cases of agriculture, what we have is more mining activities. When there are more mining activities, this ultimately enters the food chain at the aquatic level or in the terrestrial level. In the present scenario, because of increasing activities of the mining, let's say for example heavy metals like zinc or the cobalt, if it enters the aquatic plants, they contaminate and eventually can become a cause of disturbance and disease problem to all the human beings, says this article. In the present scenario, the article goes on to speak about geobacter, which says that the microbes' ability can be used to extract cobalt from the batteries and recycle it. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following are the applications of quantum technology? Weather prediction, cyber security, securing communications and financial transactions, agriculture, and pharmaceuticals. The answer to this is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. Basically, when we are speaking about quantum computers, there are different types of computer. Why? When we look into the conventional computers or what we use in a house system, what they work on is on the basis of ones and zeros. But when it comes to the quantum computers and quantum technology, they work on the basis of qubits to perform their computation. So the major difference between the personal computing and the quantum computing is on the personal computers, we have the zeros and ones that are used, and when it comes to the quantum computing, we have the qubits that will be used. But this quantum field is not yet matured for commercialization. Why? Because there are scientific challenges and it has broad number of issues and abstractness as well. In order to overcome this issue and bridge the gap that is existing in India, what we have is a program called as the National Mission on Quantum Technology and Applications. This is one of the initiatives taken by the Government of India, which has a total budget outlay of nearly 8,000 crore. Kindly remember this number. This can be very important from your preliminary examination point of view, and this will be implemented by the Department of Science and Technology. The minute this particular program is implemented full-fledged, what will be the advantages? This will lead to innovative applications that which will be developed by the industries. There might be stimulating the economic growth as well, and ultimately this will give rise to job creation as well. The mission will help prepare next generation of the skilled manpower, boost the translational research as well, and encourage entrepreneurship and startup ecosystem that which might be prevalent in India in the near future. And as and when these technologies are explored, we will have number of applications, that is to secure communications, research in fundamental physics, disaster management, pharmaceutical, industrial revolution 4.0, weather prediction, securing financial transactions, aerospace engineering, cybersecurity, and advanced manufacturing. In line with this, what we have is another program developed by the Department of Science and Technology called as Quest. So what is this Quest all about? This is also another program in reference to the quantum technology. Also remember, China has come up with one of the quantum technology application satellites called as the Messius. This can be important from your preliminary examination point of view. So kindly remember, Messius is one of the satellites of China. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following pairs. We have the bird sanctuary and the state which this bird sanctuary is present in. Sandi Bird Sanctuary, Maharashtra; Ranganathitu Bird Sanctuary, Karnataka; Mayani Bird Sanctuary, Uttar Pradesh. Which of the above is correctly matched? The answer to this is 2 only. Why? Because the Sandi Bird Sanctuary is not in Maharashtra, but instead it is in Uttar Pradesh. And we have the Mayani Bird Sanctuary, which is not in Uttar Pradesh, but instead it is in Maharashtra. Why have we taken both these practice questions? Because of the reference given under this article. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following minerals: bentonite, chromite, kyanite, and sillimanite. In India, which of the above is or officially designated as major minerals? The answer to this is 2, 3, and 4. Now the important question is, what are major minerals? Is there an official definition? No. Whatever is declared as minor minerals apart from the minor minerals becomes the major minerals. This has been present in the Mines and the Mineral Regulation Act. So kindly remember, we have bentonite, which is defined as the minor mineral, and as a result it does not fall under the major minerals. So what are some of the major minerals? We have lignite, coal, uranium, iron ore, and gold, which falls under what is called as the major minerals. Then we have minor minerals, let's say for example saltpeter, bentonite, shingle, boulder. These are defined by the government of India, and as a result they are called as the minor minerals. Now let's look into the fact of the day. There is one of the forms called as Spice Plus, which is initiated by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Why? So that they can improvise on the ease of doing business in India. As part of Government of India's Ease of Doing Business initiative, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has notified what is called as a new web form, which is christened as Spice Plus. What does it stand for? It stands for Simplified Proforma for Incorporating Company Electronically. Let's say there is a company which wants to register with the Government of India. All that it has to do is file an application on the online portal. This will help in saving the procedures, time, and cost for starting a business in India. So basically, Spice Plus offers about 11 services by 3 central government ministries and departments, thereby saving many procedures, time, and cost for starting a business in India. And this will be applicable to all the companies in the near future. There are 2 parts when it comes to Spice Plus. One is for name reservation, the other is for taking number of other services as well. So in case a company wants to register its name with the Government of India, it can effectively make use of Part A system, and if it wants to take the services from the Government of India, it can make use of Part B as well. In case it wants both simultaneously, it can engage with Part A as well as the Part B. Apart from this, the Spice Plus initiative also has a friendly dashboard on the front office, which has been created for company incorporation application. The new web form facilitates on-screen filing and real-time data validation for seamless incorporation of the companies. It is this that we have to understand in reference to Spice Plus. This is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.